Welcome to the HVAC ADHD podcast, the only show where duct design means dopamine and where energy efficiency and executive dysfunction battle it out for airtime. The HVAC podcast isn't just about better systems, it's about better people, better thinking, and a little grace for those of us who zig when the spec sheet says zag. A big thanks to Santa Fe for supporting the show. Hey y'all, welcome to the HVAC ADHD podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Begley, and today I have Chris Morin joining me for our inaugural episode. Chris isn't just any HVAC professional, he's an industry powerhouse dedicated to transforming HVAC technicians into true industry leaders. With a background rooted deeply in discipline and leadership skills he has honed as a U.S. Marine, Chris brings a unique perspective on how to thrive in our highly competitive market. As an ACA Epic HVAC instructor and author of the recently published book, Leadership in HVAC, Applying Marine Corps Leadership Traits to Residential Contracting, Chris combines his extensive hands-on experience in sales, system design, installation, service, and maintenance with strategic business insight. In today's convo, we'll explore leadership, legacy, and why building a strong culture within your HVAC business matters now more than ever. Whether you're running a seasoned shop or just starting out, this episode is packed with actionable advice to elevate your team, sharpen your leadership skills, and leave a lasting impact. I'm here with Chris Morin, and we're going to talk a little bit about leadership and legacy, what you're leaving behind for your company and what that looks like from a leadership perspective. Chris has recently wrote a book. I'll let him plug that book and talk a little bit about that, and then we'll jump into this great topic we have here today.
Thanks, Jeremy. I'm really excited. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and your audience about this. Obviously, I have a bunch to say, and I think over the last 20, 25 years, things that I thought was common sense because I was trained really early on in the Marine Corps when I was 19 as a leader. I found was not the case in most trades. So, I have more than enough to talk about on this subject.
That is awesome to hear. And I know in the book, we got a bunch of great anecdotal information from different Marines that were in the HVAC space, and they applied the leadership training and qualities that were instilled on them in the Marines, and also your background too. Today, I want to apply a little bit of that to the legacy of the company and talk about what, as a leader, we should be thinking about leaving behind as far as the operations of the company goes, what we're instilling in our techs and our installers and all those different things. So when you think about legacy and trades, tell me, what is it that comes to mind for you? Like, what pops in your mind from a leadership perspective when you're thinking about that?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. I think the first is like the tools and the lessons that get passed down. So that's like the traditional part of the trade, right? So like I remember being 16 in trade school, and there was an old timer that was training me there that taught me how to braze, right? And when he was teaching me how to braze, there was like just showing me that technique and the pride and the craftsmanship in a trade school. It came across like in person, right? And it's not something that you can just learn on a virtual call or a YouTube video. Now you actually have to do that to learn that craft. So I think like that lessons and those tools that are being passed down is a big part of the legacy of the trade. But I really think when you start looking at a business, that the ripple effect of actually doing things right. So not just brazing it correctly, but when you install a system correctly, right? That homeowner then tells their neighbors. And then when you train a technician properly, then they train the next generation properly, right? So that legacy starts to multiply through those people and their lives that you impact, right? So, that's something that really comes to mind as far as building a legacy and how it impacts the trade, right?
Do you think that any of that is getting lost in translation these days because of the way that modern HVAC companies are structured, or even some of the digital disconnect that we have where more training is done through a screen or something like that than in person? Do you think a little bit of that passed down leadership, even from a structure standpoint, is getting left behind, so to speak?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say left behind. I think it's watered down. I think that's the case, right? And some of it's circumstantial, right? We lived through the COVID pandemic and how people changed their mindset. We have a new generation coming into the trade that's very focused on virtual training and video and taking selfies and posting, right? That sort of stuff. And that's how they learn, right? Yep. Where, me and you, and not to age you, I'm sure you're about my age, Jeremy, but I feel like when we learned from a mentor, or we went to training at a manufacturer or distributor's location. That was the only way we learned, right? Yep. Outside of making mistakes. Yep. But these days, there's so many people willing to share those trial by fire mistakes. Yep. And you can learn that. And the people that learn quick in this fast-paced trade will succeed faster, right? And these young technicians and installers are recognizing that. So it's different. I think the method in how we were learning this and those lessons that were passed down have changed. I think it's an important note. So I wouldn't say they're leaving it behind. I think it gets watered down. And if you're, as a leader, not thinking about this and implementing pieces into your business, then it'll pass your business by, right? It'll pass you by. That technician will probably leave, right? Because they don't know where they can learn the next thing or how to grow, and that's what they're looking for.
Do you feel that promoting growth within the company is an important quality of leadership or an important indicator of the leadership of the company itself? I know I'll qualify that by just saying, I know there's some companies that take the stance of, this guy is always going to do this one thing, and that's what he does, and we're going to pay him for that, or this guy's really good at that, so that's what he always does. But I've personally experienced people sort of get pigeonholed, and then they don't get to learn the next thing, like you were saying. Do you think that's an issue that you see a lot when you're training on leadership?
Yeah, I think people will stay and grow instead of jumping ship if they have clear opportunities and the company's built something that's worth protecting, right? So I think in this instance, it's one of those things where if you don't lay out like clear KPIs and clear growth paths for new technicians and people of this generation that are coming into the trade that are 17, 18, 19, they're going to get bored, or they're going to look for a place that will do that for you, right? So a lot of times they might say, I'm going to leave because they offered me $1 or $2 more an hour, right? That's what everybody hears, right? Yep. But really, they're going to work for a company they want to go work for, and that's like the last straw, like, oh, and you'll pay me $1 or $2 more an hour, right? But over there, I can see there's a growth path, and I get these specific training plans, and I know I have a career, not a job, right? Right. Where if you get pigeonholed, and, I'm paid as a service technician and I'm too valuable to teach me sales, or too valuable to teach me to be an install manager or a service manager. I can't take him out of the field because he brings too much money in. That means, I hate to say it, you're probably not recruiting, and you don't have a culture where people want to come and work for you for growth, right? So because you're so worried about what am I going to do, ideally, you're going to take that person out of the field, and then they're going to multiply themselves. They're going to start training that next generation for you, right?
Correct. You want to always be building that tree. That's in my mind, that's what real leadership looks like. I think a lot of it too falls into the education, how you keep educating your shop and provide continuing education even on it. Because I've been around a lot of different shops doing what I do and in and out of it, and there's always, in my mind, there's two main kinds. There's the guys who you come in the morning, they have a morning meeting with their staff, with their service techs. They have some kind of nugget of information or education that they talk about that sends the guys out in the field, and they're always training and they're always promoting, and they always got some good stuff going on. Then there's the guys where you walk into the shop and everybody's in the back getting their tools together, getting their job together. Nobody's really ever collaborates or talks about what's going to go on for the day, and they got their little pieces of paper in their hand and they're looking at their parts list, and they go and they jump in their truck and they go out and they do the job, and then they come back to the shop and they put everything back, or whatever they do at the end of the day, and then they go on about their business. And that's how the business, and usually those shops have the same 5 people doing the same 5 things over and over again. You don't see any real growth or anything like that.
Yeah, well, I think the clear difference in those two shops is one actually has a culture, right? That by talking with each other and teaching and learning from each other, what you'll find is they're all leaders, right? Just because your title isn't manager or something, there's a big difference between a manager and a leader, right? And you can be a leader at any level. It's just a matter of who you're leading, right? And it could be the service team, it could be the install team, it could be you happen to be the lead on that job and you're teaching an apprentice, right? So you could even be the apprentice talking to a homeowner, right? You can still learn to be a leader in that instance, or how you handle your relationship with your distributor or the counter personnel. So there's many opportunities there, but the ones that communicate well and talk to each other and learn from each other build a good culture. And that's one of those things that's really hard to define. You can't like say, this is how we build that culture, right? But you know if you have it or you don't have it. And usually it's, do the people stay and grow or do they leave? Places that don't have a good culture, typically they leave. And it's really easy in our industry to feel like you're on an island, especially as a service tech, when you're running 6-7 calls a day. And if you don't have that communication and talking to your team, the only time you're getting phone calls is a problem, or they're adding another one at the end of the day and you're working 60 or 70 hours and you just get frustrated. When in actuality, hopefully you're talking to your team, you're talking to the installers and telling them about all the callbacks you're going on so they stop doing that, right? So there's got to be communication. I think that's the way to build the culture and to grow that team.
Are you still sizing systems by rule of thumb or selling jobs before knowing the load? We're happy to introduce the Permanent Load Reduction and Verified Performance Specialist Training, a 3-day immersive experience where HVAC pros get hands-on with real tools, real homes, and real diagnostics. Day 1, learn how to find and fix the load with building science-backed methods. Day 2, get certified as a MeasureQuick user and airflow diagnostic specialist. Day 3, bring it all together with advanced permanent load reduction strategies and verified system performance on a real home. This isn't just theory, it's permanent load reduction and verified performance, the kind that sticks. It's time to stop guessing and start proving. Sign up today at www.hvac2homeperformance on our training page. Tell me how you feel about this statement. Bill's been here for 5 years. I think it's time he got a promotion.
Oh. Have you ever heard of the Peter Principle?
I have, but why don't you tell our audience about the Peter Principle? I love the Peter Principle. Yeah.
Yeah, this is exactly how so this is a book written, 60s or 70s, something like that, right? So the idea of the Peter Principle is everybody gets promoted to their job or to their, I'm going to mess this up here, but to their point of where they're no longer effective, basically. Because if you're good at your job in this instance, after so long, you get promoted. They just assume you'll have the skills for the next job, right? So I think, and I experienced this in the military, right?
Sure.
Where we call it time and grade, okay?
Okay.
And luckily in the Marine Corps, there's not as many people as there is in the Army or the Navy, right? So they stop time and grade promotions after E3. So they go private first class, lance corporal. After that, you no longer get promoted based on time and service. There's a bunch of stuff that goes into this calculation to get promoted to non-commissioned officer levels.
Right.
And I think that it translates really well to how we should do it in our trade, because if you promote people based on how long they've been in, you're going to stop promoting everybody once they're no longer effective. And now your whole organization is full of that. And now everybody's not effective at their job. And this is the same for a small business or a corporation. I've worked in both.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The smallest business right now is just me, an assistant, and my daughter's been working for me part-time this summer.
Right.
And if I was to promote my daughter for working for me forever long and she's not effective, you can see how it could really impact a small.
That's a great analogy, actually. Yeah.
And now you just multiply that by 500 for a large corporation, and now it happens faster, actually, right? So you got to be very careful. I would never promote somebody based on time there unless we're talking about an apprentice level and you have it separated.
Sure,
right?
that's something different. Yeah, apprentice program is totally different than what we're talking about here, for sure. That is a program that's meant for time and advancement. I mean, that's just the way it's built, and yeah, it's a structured thing. But I think we see a lot in the HVAC industry and the home performance industry, and like you said, it has every industry. But we see with the family-oriented style of business that is done in the HVAC industry. You see people getting promoted for just being there a lot of times, and a lot of times they're probably not the best person to be leading the team and managing the team and things like that. I see it as one of the bigger issues in the way shops are ran from a traditional standpoint. Now, there's a lot of shops out there that are not running that way, and that have moved on to more non-traditional, modern ways of building their culture. But when you see that quote unquote, I think family culture, then when it's promoted as family culture, a lot of times you see guys that got promoted because they're part of the family, just, hey, he's been here long enough now. He's one of us. Let's get him in, get him in a position of power, so to speak. And sometimes we see the biggest failures like ever from that type of promotion. It's just so difficult to not call it out for what it is sometimes.
It is. And a lot of people that want a promotion, they don't necessarily want to lead people. They probably want a raise.
Yes.
Right. So if they're asking for a promotion, that's the case. If they're asking to do a different job or to grow and to learn to do something else, that's probably the person that you want to lead, right?
Yeah.
Because then they're going to promote that sort of thing with everybody that reports to them. So I would definitely, if you're looking to promote somebody into a position, don't look at the person that's been there the longest or the person that does that job the best. Look at the one that wants to cross-train and learn all the different features. Helps. If they're a service guy, they help the install team. If they're on the install team, they're always talking about the things they see out there to the sales team, right? So the ones that introduce that communication and help that culture are going to be good leaders.
Absolutely. I think, too, like when we talk about culture and leadership and things like that, it's real important to create a culture of cooperation, because I see a lot of times sales guys and I'll use a restaurant analogy here because before I got into this industry, I had 15 years in food, beverage, and high-end service. And one of the biggest conflicts that you saw all the time were the servers versus the cooks, right? The front of the house versus the back of the house. The cooks felt like the servers made $1 million and they didn't do any work. And the servers felt like, the cooks were always hassling them and never got their food out on time. And so you'd always have that, that back and forth. And I see it in the HVAC shops a lot, especially when there's like a sales structure where guys who have actual salesmen that go out and sell and make the money. And then, you got the installers and the service techs that come behind them. There's always some kind of discontent between the service techs or the installers and what they perceive the salesmen are doing. And then on the salesman side, those guys are always like, hey, we're the lifeblood of the company. You wouldn't even have any work if it wasn't for us. So it's very important from a leadership standpoint, I feel like, and I want to hear your thoughts on this, to promote cooperation between all facets of the business. Even like you said, brought up before, cross-training is a great way to do that, like get into promoting that type of spirit of cooperation.
Yeah, I think there's a couple different things in this instance that needs to be implemented, right? So first, one of the leadership traits I talk about in the book is tact. And I think that's a big problem in our industry, particularly for service team members or internal to the company, because how you're explaining what is true, you're not avoiding the truth, right? But how you're explaining it and how you're talking to your team really goes a long way in how receptive they are or how they react to it, right? So in your example, if the installers are all upset because this guy keeps selling jobs that are impossible or they're running over on hours or whatever, going to the salesperson and asking how they can help explain it or help them bid it better or whatever is much easier in that conversation than the opposite, where typically you hear about a salesperson coming over like, what the hell, why'd you guys go 2 days over? Now I don't get my commission, or now it comes out of my net profit, or whatever the situation is, right? And how that is communicated is extremely important. It can go both ways. You can have the communication one way or the other, but how it's done, if it's done tactfully, it's really important. And in order to do it tactfully, you have to have empathy. So It's not necessarily a leadership trait, but you have to be able to put yourself in that position and understand what they're going through and communicate that you understand that. So if you're able to do that, you're going to open up that dialogue and make, that culture able to work in, right? Make it a growth culture where everybody's learning from each other instead of a battle like you're talking about, and these divided lines and I hate to say it, like maybe, please forgive me, silos, right? So we want to avoid silos no matter how big the company is.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of the best sales guys that I've seen that have that tact that you're talking about, I'm actually glad you brought that up, is they're very cognizant of the jobs that they're selling and what it's going to do to the installers and what it's going to take for those guys to get that installed and do it the right way. And if they think it's something that's going to be a little bit harder or more difficult, they're quick to go over and say, hey, I just sold this job. Here's what we're going to be looking at. I know it's going to be a little bit difficult for you, but I know you guys got it. You can handle it. And then there's the other side of that where those guys never talk, and it's always feels adversarial, like he did this to us, he put this crazy job on us, and I don't know what he expects here. So, that was
they just get a job folder in the morning.
Exactly.
And out they go, right?
Yeah.
Those are tough days. Yeah, you don't want to be in there. You don't want to be working there.
Tough days for everybody involved, I'd say. So, if you could leave a piece of advice, or actually, let's first start here. What's one piece of advice for junior techs that you would give junior techs or junior installers that are making their way up through the food chain? What's one, and they, aspire to do more and they want to be leaders in the company. What advice would you have for them as they're trying to make their way in this industry?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jeremy. I would say investment in their professional development and working for a company that wants to do that. I think, if you're interested in growing and you show that you are by attending those classes, by bringing new ideas, and by offering alternative ways, not to say something's wrong, but hey, there's another way we can do this, right? Because you're learning, then you'll quickly grow in your career. I think, like we were talking about at the beginning, today's apprentice and junior techs, right? It's different. It's different now in how they gather information. They always want to know why. I feel like the new generation is very similar to when my daughter was like 5 years old. Every question was why, right?
Exactly.
Because they want to understand and they want to do better, right? It's not a bad thing. And sometimes you might feel like you're babysitting or something like that because of that. Mm-hmm. But that just means you have a good employee that wants to learn. It's not a bad thing, right? And if you have a new employee or apprentice that doesn't ask that, you really need to get them to understand professional development and offer options to get them into that mindset. Because if they don't want to continue to grow, there's an old saying, right? Like, what happens if we train them and they leave, right? The worst is if we don't train them and they stay, right? And that's what you don't want.
Richard Branson said that, I think, yeah, that's a great quote. I think you hit on a key point there, too, from the opposite end of it. If you do have a tech that's wanting to grow like that as a person in a management or leadership position, you have to be able to pick up on that early on and feed into that as a leader of that company and really encourage that growth pattern from those guys that really want to reach out and do better. And just like own the industry, so to speak, and really, like you said, looking for professional development and all those type of things. Those are great signs of somebody that, hey, you got a good one there. We should really, encourage this behavior in these guys. I see things like Measure Quick and Conduit Tech and these different technologies that we get, and some of the younger guys are like, hey, I heard about this great thing, and the leaders are like, I don't know about all that. And so, I think it takes a certain type of open-mindedness from a leadership standpoint in today's world, because there's a lot of old school stuff in the HVAC business that has been there for years, and some of it's phasing out into the newer technologies. And so what's your thoughts on getting a owner or manager to accept some of these newer technologies from these younger techs as they see it and they like latch onto it and they know it's the right thing to do, but they can't talk the big guy into doing it, so to speak?
Yeah. You know what helps motivation is let them try it, right? So and I've worked for both types of leaders. I've worked for the guy that just says, no, we've never done it that way, or, this is the way we do it. They don't want to hear an alternative, right? And it's really tough to communicate the options in that instance. And you get frustrated. It's very demotivating. But as a leader on the other end of that, if you're willing to let them try something and willing to let them fail, it's not going to cost you a lot of money, right? They're going to learn a lesson. You know, you were the leader, let them fail. You might have told them, hey, this is how we normally do it, but if you want to give it a try, go ahead. If it works, maybe we'll add that to our company profile, right? So a great example would be like you said, Conduit Tech. Conduit, if you guys didn't know, it's LiDAR. It does manual J load calcs very quickly and very accurately. The alternative, there's a lot of software out there that was approved for decades. Like I personally have used RightSoft for over 20 years. Takes a couple hours to do a room by room load calc and RightSoft accurately, right? But I could shave that to like 30 minutes or less with Conduit and get the same answer. So it's expensive and it costs, you know, and you have to understand how to use that technology. So there's a little learning curve. Somebody that's never used an iPad or something, you know. So if I was to let that one tech try it and find out, holy moly, that salesperson is doing load calcs every job and they're smaller systems and they're building value and their average ticket went up, we should implement this with everybody, right? But if I never let them try it, I would never know. And that's just poor leadership in that example, right? So I have to let them try and fail if I'm a good leader.
Try and fail is an important thing for some of these older guys to latch on to, because, you know, they get some of the leaders of the companies, they get so caught up in the most important thing, which they should be caught up to, which is their customer base. But at the same time, they get caught up in the fascination that they're going to lose some of these people by letting some of their techs take on some of these technologies, because it's actually their own comfort level. And so I think if we could come up with a way for some of these younger techs to get some of the older guys comfortable with this, you know, try it and see, like you said, then we could really start making some headway in some of these older legacy type companies that are out there right now.
Yeah, you know, I not to use too many analogies or stories, but in my off time, my one hobby that's not HVAC related is I work on old Swiss watches, actually. So I fix old watches. Yeah, it's really, I mean, my eyes aren't the best. I got to use a microscope and stuff. But I've learned over the last few years that most people don't want to know the minutia on how a watch is made. They just want to know what time it is, right? They want to make sure it's accurate, know what time it is.
No, it's...
I think that there's a translation there when it comes to a leader where, like, they don't want to know all the details, or they say, this is the only thing, the only watch we have, and this is what we do, right? Where if you understood how that all works together, maybe at another organization, or you've seen somebody grow in your market that's willing to talk to you, or even out of market, right? There's organizations around that you could join. Then you can start to implement those pieces and make that watch work better for you, right? More accurate. And that would translate to higher profits for your company, right? And a better culture, and more people want to work for you or stay with you and grow. So I think it's a decent analogy, and it's not too often I get to connect my one hobby outside of HVAC.
I thought it worked great. I was actually, it's perfect. It's a great analogy, and I was shocked by the hobby. I don't think I've ever talked to anybody that said, hey, I repair old watches for a hobby. Yeah.
So you know what's interesting, Jeremy? So actually, my military background, and this might be a little off topic from leadership here, but I got a little bit of anxiety, PTSD stuff that happened when I was overseas a couple times, right? Yep. So one time I took a watch to the watch place to get a battery replaced. And they want to charge me like $80. I'm like, $80 to replace a battery? I don't have this little screwdriver, so what am I going to do, right? Right. So I paid the money, got the watch back, and I told my wife, next time I'm replacing myself, that's ridiculous, right? And that's typically what you see a mechanic mindset, right? I can fix it, right? That's my idea. So then we got a little back and forth, and I thought, not only am I going to do I'm going to get a mechanical one off of eBay, I'm going to fix that too, right? So just to prove a point, like I can do this, right? And then, so I did it first with like a little loop, right, on my eye.
That's awesome.
With the wrong screwdriver.
I'm just sitting here imagining this whole thing. It's hilarious.
Oh man! But I got it running, right? Yep. And I was so happy. And then I realized when I was working on that watch, I wasn't thinking about all the problems in the world and my anxiety, and the little shake I had in my hand went away, and it was so relaxing. So I went to look for training. And lo and behold, a bunch of former veterans that had problems were talking about picking up watchmaking because they had to control their breathing and all these different things that you wouldn't normally associate with reducing anxiety, right? It was really cool. So then I bought some tools to help me. It's a very expensive hobby, by the way. I would stay away from it. If you
Oh,
haven't.
I mean, anything, when you say Swiss anything, I'm like, think dollar signs start, flashing in my eyes right away. But the fact that it helped with your anxiety and that it was just like a natural thing, that is amazing. That's one of the coolest hobby stories I think I've heard.
Yeah, the downside is now I have about 32 watches that I'm unwilling, after I've repaired, I'm unwilling to sell.
Oh, yeah.
So it's getting a little out of hand at home. I can only wear so, and actually I have my Apple Watch on today, but I got a box full of Swiss watches in the other room that, I could wear them all for a week and it would take all year.
Oh, yeah. That's a nice little side effect of the hobby, though. You get some really cool keepsake watches that you wind up with because you're the guy that can fix them. That's pretty cool.
Right.
That's a great side story. I actually enjoyed that. Thank you very much for telling that. Let's wrap it up here. I want to throw one fun little question out for you. If your book was getting wiped off the face of the earth and nobody was ever going to get to read it again, what's one thing that you would write on the wall for everybody left behind to see? What's the message, the overarching message from the book that you would want left behind?
Yeah. So I would have to say that excellence isn't an accident, it's a habit. And that good companies, they just don't happen to do great work sometimes, right? Like it's because they made it a habit and they've always improved. So they systematically built processes and do training, create a culture on purpose that make them excellent and always have excellence as a natural outcome, right? So excellence isn't an accident, it's a habit. And actually, there's some leadership traits, obviously, we talk about, but there's also like core values, right? That I'm sure everybody's probably seen these little things that you can go around online and take these little quizzes to get your core values. And I have a handful that I always write on my planner every year, right? There's 4 of them that I live by. But one of them that is not a core value pertains to this. It's consistency. And extremely important. And that feeds back to like it's a habit. If you're consistent with everything that you're doing, whether you're working on these leadership traits as a habit, right, to improve yourself and your company, or in that trait you're a technician, you're an apprentice, and you're working on knowledge or you're working on tact, right? If you're consistently working on that habit and making it a habit, then you're going to find excellence. It's just about a guarantee. It's the natural result of working on it all the time. And if you don't work on it and it's not front of mind, it's easy how that company can slip into obscurity or close down, right? Because nobody wants to work with you.
I absolutely love that. I'm a big gym guy, and I've been going to the gym for 25, 30 years now. It's like religious for me. It's sort of like your hobby. Like it's my thing where that's what I go and do, and that's where I let it all out at, and I leave it there. But like one of my favorite things is just show up. Like no matter what you do, show up, man. Just come every day, and something's gonna happen. Like I use it as a hashtag in a lot of my own personal postings and things like that, like hashtag just show up, because like, man, you got to be consistent. You're never going to get 100% every day of your life, but as long as you show up and keep building on what you did the day before, then you're going to make things happen. And I live by that. So I absolutely love that your thing you're leaving on the wall is consistency is key, because that's an amazing, powerful message to leave people with.
Thanks. I appreciate it, Jeremy. Yeah. And obviously if you want to work on it in the book, there's a handful of activities that you can grade yourself, know what to work on first, and improve as a leader, right? That's the whole point in creating, I wouldn't say just a book. Like, it's not like you can just buy this book and read it, put it on the shelf, and check it off. This is something you go back to and work on consistently.
100%. Before we leave, I want to give you anything you want to shout out, any of your services you want to talk about, anything you want to tell the audience about what you're doing before we jump off here?
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, so obviously I do other things besides create very expensive business cards, which is what books tend to be these days, right? So I couldn't make a living, obviously, just doing that. Not for me, anyway. So I actually do a lot of system design training. So I'm an ACA design instructor. I teach people manuals, JS and D, among others. So I offer that locally in New England in person. And in fact, if you're in Massachusetts and you're listening, Massachusetts contractors can get reimbursed 100% if they go to my system design training. I got it approved with a workforce training fund. That starts this September. Yeah. So there's a process. You go to my website, you can click on it and learn the process. But if you're elsewhere outside of New England, you can't come in and take advantage of something like that. Obviously, I offer virtual master classes. So I do teach those manuals over a 4-week period. It's all recorded content every week. On that Friday, we have a live Q&A. So week 1, I'll do Manual J, live Q&A on Friday. Next week is Manual ZR for zoning, then S, then D, right? So I do that. We kick that back off again in September, and you can find more information at hvacproblog.com on that. But if you want to learn something absolutely free today, I have over 200 videos on YouTube. You can check it out. And if you ever wanted 15 minutes on my calendar, please reach out. It's amazing. I offer this to everybody. If you think I can help with something in 15 minutes, at least I can give you a free resource or tell you, hey, I got a paid resource, more than happy to try to see if your unique situation is something I can help walk you through. That's my job now. That's my whole business, is helping answering those questions, consulting, right? So I'm looking for you. So please grab 15 minutes on my calendar, and I'd love to meet and talk to you and see where I can help.
Awesome. I hope people reach out to you. I love what you're doing. We're in similar fields, and I've interacted with Chris over the years. I met him when he was with Mitsubishi still, and we've interacted, and he reached out as soon as he heard about the podcast and said, hey, I wrote a book. Let me jump on and talk about it. So I'll be forever grateful for you paying attention to what we're doing and asking to come talk to us. So I'm sure we'll interact again, but thank you very much for now for being on, and I hope you're successful in everything you do.
Thanks, bud. I appreciate it, and look forward to hopefully seeing you again on here soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chris. The HVAC ADHD podcast is produced and edited by the team at Palm Tree Pod Co. Anthony Palmer is the executive producer. Bo Patton is our technical director. Nolan Gray is our audio engineer, and Caitlin Krings is the head of digital. The content for this episode is created by me. Hoo-day, go Bengals!